She was beaten and left on the side of the road. A cowboy found her and brought her home. Clara had never imagined that one night could change her life so completely. She was a young woman in her early 20s, with a gentle heart and a strong spirit, but life had not always been kind to her. For as long as she could remember, she had faced challenges that tested her courage and determination. Growing up in a small town, she had learned to take care of herself, but nothing had prepared her for the danger that would find her on this cold, lonely night. Earlier that evening, Clara had been walking home after finishing her late shift at a local diner. She had been saving every penny she could, hoping to move to a bigger city and build a life full of opportunities. Life in the small town was often quiet, but it had its dark corners, and tonight, those shadows seemed to follow her wherever she went. The streets were empty. The usual chatter of neighbors and distant music from houses was gone, leaving only the sound of her footsteps echoing through the deserted roads. She clutched her coat tighter around herself as the wind cut sharply across her face. The chill seemed to reach into her bones, making her shiver despite the layers she wore. Her mind wandered to the events of the past few weeks. The arguments with people she had once trusted, the disappointments she had faced, and the constant feeling that the world was not as safe as it should be. Clara had always tried to stay strong, to push through every difficulty with her head held high, but tonight, the world seemed especially cruel and unforgiving. As she turned a corner near the edge of town, Clara felt a sudden unease. Something about the silence made her heart race. She tried to shake off the feeling, telling herself it was just her imagination. Yet, before she could take another step, she was confronted by someone she had hoped she would never see again. A person from her past who held anger and resentment, someone who saw her fear as a weakness to exploit. The confrontation escalated quickly. Words turned into shouts, and before Clara could react, she was struck. Pain exploded across her body, sharp and overwhelming, and she fell to the ground. The world seemed to tilt and spin around her. Every attempt to move to defend herself was met with more pain. Tears blurred her vision, not just from the physical agony but from the helplessness she felt. She had always believed that if she stayed cautious and avoided trouble, she could keep herself safe. But tonight, that belief shattered. When the attacker finally left, Clara was left alone on the side of the road. Her body ached in ways she had never experienced, and her mind struggled to comprehend what had just happened. The sky above was dark, the only light coming from a pale moon partially hidden by clouds. She tried to call for help, her voice barely a whisper, swallowed by the emptiness of the night. Cars passed by now and then, their headlights sweeping across her broken form, but no one stopped. It was as if the world had forgotten she existed. Clara felt fear settle deep in her chest, heavy and suffocating. She wondered if anyone would find her before it was too late. The cold wind bit at her skin, and the rough ground pressed against her bruised body. She curled into herself, trying to protect what little warmth she had left. Every sound made her flinch, the rustling of leaves, the distant bark of a dog, the soft hum of tires on the road. She was alone, truly alone, in a place that offered no comfort or safety. As minutes turned into hours, Clara's thoughts drifted to her life and the people she loved. She thought of her mother, who had always told her to be strong but had passed away when Clara was just a teenager. She thought of her younger brother, who looked up to her and depended on her, even though she had often felt unprepared for that responsibility. Memories of happier times floated through her mind like fragile, glowing lights in the darkness. They gave her a small measure of comfort, reminding her that life had once been gentle and kind, even if it was not that way now. Despite her pain, Clara refused to give up entirely. She moved slightly, trying to shift her position so she could stay awake. Sleep would be dangerous. She knew she could not afford to let herself fall unconscious in this place. Her mind raced, searching for any solution, any way to survive until someone found her. She looked at the horizon, hoping to see a light, a figure, anything that could signal help. Each passing moment felt eternal, and yet she kept trying, refusing to let despair consume her completely. In the darkness, Clara remembered the stories she had heard about kindness and hope. People who had gone out of their way to help strangers, even when it was inconvenient or risky. She clung to that thought, imagining that somewhere out there someone might appear who would not ignore her plight. The thought was fragile, but it was enough to keep her heart beating steadily. Hours passed, and the first signs of dawn began to touch the sky with pale colors. Clara's strength was waning, but her hope flickered stubbornly. She tried to lift her head to see further down the road, searching for any sign of life. It was then that she heard the sound of hooves, soft but distinct, growing louder with each passing second. Her heart leapt with a mixture of fear and hope. Could it really be someone coming to help her? The hooves drew closer, and soon the figure of a man on horseback appeared through the morning mist. He was tall and broad, dressed in simple clothes that suggested a life of hard work outdoors. There was something steady and calm about him, a sense of quiet strength that immediately put Clara slightly at ease. She wanted to call out, but her voice barely formed the words. The man noticed her instantly, slowing his horse to approach gently. As he dismounted and knelt beside her, Clara felt a mixture of relief and disbelief. Here was a stranger, a person who could have passed her by but had chosen to stop. He spoke softly, asking if she was okay, though he could see she was far from it. His tone was gentle, not patronizing, and it gave Clara the courage to respond. She whispered her answer, her voice weak and trembling, but enough for him to understand that she needed help. The man carefully helped her to sit up, supporting her weight as best he could. He examined her injuries with a careful eye, and Clara felt a warmth she had not felt in hours. She did not know his name yet, but she already sensed that she could trust him. This simple act of compassion, the willingness to stop and care for a stranger, filled her with a cautious hope she had not felt since she was left alone. The cowboy, as she would soon learn to call him, offered her water and a blanket he carried on his horse. He spoke in calm, reassuring words, telling her that she would be safe and that he would make sure she got help. Clara felt tears welling up, not just from the pain in her body, but from the overwhelming relief of being seen, being cared for, being valued. In that moment, the darkness of the night seemed to recede slightly, replaced by a sense of possibility, a chance to survive, a chance to heal, a chance to begin again. As they prepared to leave the roadside, Clara realized that her life had changed forever in a single night. She had faced the worst of fear and violence, but she had also experienced the profound goodness of a stranger willing to extend a hand when it was most needed. For the first time in hours, she allowed herself to believe that she might have a tomorrow worth living for, a tomorrow where she could recover, rebuild, and perhaps even find trust and friendship once more. And so, as the first light of morning broke across the empty fields, Clara held on tightly to the hope that she would make it through this dark chapter. She did not know what the future held, but she knew that at least one person cared enough to stop and help her. That small act of kindness was enough to keep her moving forward, to keep her heart beating steadily, and to remind her that even in the darkest night, hope could find its way back. Clara could hardly believe her luck. Just hours ago, she had been lying alone on the cold, hard roadside, battered and afraid, wondering if anyone would ever find her. And now, as the morning sun began to rise, a stranger, a kind man on horseback, had stopped to help her. She didn't know his name yet, but his calm presence and gentle voice gave her a small but powerful sense of safety she had not felt in what seemed like forever. The cowboy helped her to sit on his horse with care. Clara's body ached in every joint, and she winced each time she moved, but the cowboy's steady hands and patient guidance made it possible. He adjusted the blanket he carried across the horse's back so she could rest against it comfortably, offering her a warmth that went far beyond its physical comfort. Clara felt a mix of nervousness and relief as she looked up at him. His eyes were kind, and his expression showed concern without judgment. She felt a little of her fear ease, though a cautious part of her still wanted to hold back, unsure if she could trust anyone completely again. The ride was slow. Every bump in the road made Clara flinch, but the cowboy's skill and experience with his horse kept the journey smooth enough that she could manage. He said little, only occasionally asking if she was okay or if she needed to adjust her position. Clara was grateful for his quiet presence. Words were hard for her to form, her throat still raw from shouting and crying the night before. She wanted to speak, to thank him, to explain everything, but the exhaustion from her injuries weighed heavily on her. Instead, she let him guide her, letting the rhythm of the horse's steps calm her restless mind. As they traveled, Clara began to notice the beauty of the early morning. The sun's light spread slowly over the fields, turning the grass into a sea of gold. Birds began to sing, and a soft breeze rustled through the trees. For the first time that night, Clara allowed herself to take in her surroundings. Even in her pain, she realized that life could still hold moments of peace and beauty. The cowboy seemed to move through the world naturally, as though he belonged to the land itself. His horse trotted steadily, its hooves making soft sounds on the dirt road, creating a rhythm that was oddly comforting. After some time, they arrived at a small, cozy house set slightly back from the road. Smoke rose from the chimney, carrying the faint smell of breakfast cooking. The cowboy led Clara carefully down from the horse and into the house. The warmth inside was immediate, a sharp contrast to the cold night she had endured. The walls were simple, adorned with a few family photos, a clock ticking softly in the corner, and a bookshelf filled with well-worn books. It was not a grand home, but it was welcoming, a safe place far from the dangers of the outside world. He helped her to a chair and gently guided her to rest. Clara could feel the stiffness in her muscles and the bruises that had formed overnight, but she also felt a sense of relief washing over her. The cowboy disappeared for a moment and returned with a bowl of warm water and a soft cloth. Carefully, he began to clean the cuts and scrapes on her face and hands. His movements were slow and gentle, showing patience and care that made Clara feel a little less like a victim and more like a human being deserving of kindness. Clara wanted to ask him why he had stopped to help her. Why would a stranger go out of his way for someone he did not know? But she could not find her voice at first. The kindness he showed was overwhelming, and the tears she had been holding back all night finally spilled down her cheeks. The cowboy simply wiped them away with the cloth, saying nothing except, "It's all right. You're safe now." Those simple words felt like a lifeline, and Clara clung to them. After helping her clean up, he prepared a small meal for her, warm bread, soup, and some fresh fruit. Clara's stomach had been empty for hours, and the simple food tasted like a feast. She ate slowly, savoring each bite, feeling nourishment both for her body and for her spirit. The cowboy watched quietly, ensuring she ate enough without pressuring her. There was a gentleness in his actions, a quiet understanding that healing could not be rushed. As Clara rested, she began to tell him a little about herself. She spoke softly, at first hesitant, unsure how much to reveal. She told him about the town she had grown up in, about her dreams for the future, and about the hardships that had led to her being alone on the roadside. The cowboy listened intently, never interrupting, never judging. His presence made it easier for her to share, and each word she spoke felt like a small step toward freeing herself from the fear and pain she had carried. The cowboy finally introduced himself as Jack. He had lived in the area all his life, raising horses and working the land. He had a reputation in the town for helping anyone in need, and his calm, steady nature had earned him respect from neighbors and strangers alike. But it was more than reputation that guided him. It was a genuine belief that people should help one another, especially in moments of crisis. Clara realized that Jack's actions that night were not heroic in the way of grand gestures or dramatic rescues, but in the simple, steadfast commitment to do what was right. As the morning turned into afternoon, Clara began to feel a little stronger. Her bruises and aches were still present, but the warmth of the house, the care Jack showed, and the comfort of having someone listen made the pain a little more bearable. She felt a glimmer of hope she had not felt since the attack. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, she believed she might survive this ordeal, and more importantly, that she might find the strength to rebuild her life. Jack did not pressure her to explain every detail or to make any immediate decisions about her future. Instead, he allowed her to rest, providing a safe space where she could heal at her own pace. He showed her where she could wash up, offered clean clothes, and even suggested she take a short nap while he tended to chores outside. Clara felt a deep sense of gratitude. In a world that had shown her cruelty, she had found kindness, and that kindness became a source of strength. Throughout the day, Clara noticed small things that made the house feel more like a home. The sound of a kettle boiling, the smell of fresh bread baking, and the soft clatter of dishes created a sense of normalcy she had not experienced in a long time. Jack moved about naturally, his actions deliberate and unhurried, giving Clara time to regain some of her composure. Each gesture, no matter how small, was a reminder that she was no longer alone, that there were still people in the world who could be trusted and relied upon. As evening approached, Clara and Jack sat together on the porch, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. The world outside still held dangers, but for this moment she felt safe. Jack spoke gently about the simple life he led, his love for the land, and his belief that everyone deserved a second chance. Clara listened, absorbing his words and feeling the truth in them. She realized that healing was not only about tending to her wounds, but also about rediscovering trust and hope. That night, Jack prepared a small bed for Clara in a quiet room of his house. She lay down, her body exhausted but her heart feeling a cautious sense of peace. The events of the night before still haunted her, but she knew she had survived and that someone cared enough to help her. Jack's presence, his steady support, and his willingness to offer care without judgment created a foundation for her recovery. As she drifted off to sleep, Clara thought about the journey ahead. She did not know what the future would bring, but for the first time, she believed she could face it. The kindness of a stranger had given her a chance to start anew, and she felt a spark of determination deep within her. She understood that her path to healing would be long and difficult, but with Jack's help and the safety he provided, she could begin to reclaim her life. The next morning, Clara woke to the sound of birds singing and sunlight streaming through the window. Her body still ached, but she felt a renewed sense of hope. She looked around the room and remembered the events of the past day, the attack, the fear, the ride to safety, and the care she had received. Each moment had brought her closer to understanding that even in the darkest times, human kindness could shine through. Jack entered the room quietly, carrying a tray with breakfast. He smiled at her, not with pity but with genuine concern and respect. Clara realized that this small act, this simple offering of food and companionship, was part of a larger truth. The world could be harsh, but it could also be generous, compassionate, and full of unexpected help. She took the breakfast, feeling nourishment and comfort, and in that moment, she knew that she had found not just a rescuer but a friend who would help her navigate the challenges ahead. And so, Clara's journey of recovery began in earnest. The pain of the night before was still fresh, but the warmth of the home, the steady presence of Jack, and the quiet reassurance that she was no longer alone gave her the courage to face each new day. She knew that healing would take time, but for the first time, she felt that it was possible. With trust, kindness, and a glimmer of hope, Clara was ready to take the first steps toward a future that, until now, had seemed impossible. The following days passed slowly, but with a gentle rhythm that Clara had not experienced in a long time. For the first time since the attack, she felt a sense of safety, a sense that she could rest without fearing for her life. The small house where Jack lived became a place of calm for her, a sanctuary from the harshness of the world. Each day, she discovered that healing was not just about tending to bruises and scrapes. It was also about finding peace in the heart, letting go of fear, and learning to trust again. Jack continued his quiet routine, tending to his horses and working on the land, but he always made sure Clara was comfortable. Some mornings, he would bring her a cup of warm tea and a piece of bread, sitting with her for a few minutes to chat before returning to his chores. Other times, he left her to rest while he moved about the property, yet he always remained nearby enough that she knew she was not alone. The consistency of his presence, neither overwhelming nor absent, helped Clara begin to feel secure in ways she had not felt in years. Clara found herself slowly opening up to Jack. At first, she spoke only in small fragments, hesitating as she recalled the events that had led to her being left on the roadside. But as the days went by, she found the courage to share more. She told him about her childhood, about her dreams, and about the moments that had left her feeling weak and alone. She spoke of her mother, who had passed away when Clara was very young, and of her younger brother, who depended on her even when she felt unprepared. She told him about the challenges of growing up in a town where opportunities were limited, where hope often felt distant. Jack listened patiently. He did not interrupt, judge, or rush her. He simply listened, nodding when appropriate, offering words of encouragement when she faltered. There was no pressure, no expectation, only understanding. This simple act of listening allowed Clara to release some of the tension she had carried for so long. She realized that speaking aloud her fears and memories made them less frightening. She also noticed that each time she spoke, her heart felt a little lighter, and the weight of the past seemed a little less suffocating. One afternoon, as the sun shone warmly over the fields, Clara sat with Jack on the porch. A gentle breeze carried the scent of fresh grass and the faint aroma of hay from the stables. She shared a story from her childhood, a happy memory of a time when life had been simpler. Jack smiled and asked questions, encouraging her to recall the details. Clara laughed softly, the sound delicate and bright, and realized that it had been a long time since she had felt that lightness in her heart. The laughter was a small victory, a reminder that joy could exist even after pain. Jack also shared stories of his own life, though he spoke less about himself and more about the land, the horses, and the simple joys he found in everyday work. Clara listened, fascinated by the rhythm of his life. He spoke of the care required to tend animals, of the patience needed to work with nature, and of the satisfaction of completing a day's work with honest effort. Through these stories, Clara began to understand Jack's values: responsibility, kindness, and a deep respect for living things. She admired him not only for his strength but for his humility, and slowly she began to trust him more fully. As the days went by, Clara's body began to recover more noticeably. The bruises faded, the aches lessened, and she regained some of her strength. Yet she understood that physical healing was only part of the journey. Her mind was still clouded with fear, memories of the attack, and lingering doubts about whether the world could be safe for her again. Jack seemed to sense this, offering reassurance not through grand gestures but through consistent, gentle support. Sometimes it was simply his presence that helped, sitting quietly nearby, his calm energy providing a silent shield against her anxiety. One evening, Clara decided to take a short walk around the property, Jack walking beside her. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange, pink, and purple. The beauty of the scene stirred a mixture of emotions in her: wonder at the world's colors, gratitude for her safety, and a cautious hope for the future. Jack encouraged her to breathe deeply and take in the scenery. "The world can be hard," he said softly, "but it can also be kind. Sometimes you have to give yourself time to notice it." Clara nodded, realizing that this small act of noticing the good was part of her healing. During these walks, Clara began to reflect on the events that had brought her to this point. She thought about her fears, her anger, and her pain, acknowledging them without letting them control her. Jack did not force her to forget or forgive immediately. Instead, he allowed her to process at her own pace. This patience gave Clara the courage to confront her feelings gradually. She realized that healing was not about erasing the past, but about learning to live with it, to grow stronger despite it. As trust deepened between them, Clara began to share more of her fears and insecurities. She spoke about feeling alone in the world, about wondering whether anyone could truly care for her. Jack listened, offering gentle encouragement and reminders of her strength. He never dismissed her feelings or told her to just get over it. Instead, he helped her see that her experiences had shaped her resilience, that surviving the night and making it to his home was proof of her courage and determination. Clara also began to notice small acts of care that went beyond the practical. Jack would make sure she had extra blankets when the nights were cold, leave her a cup of warm tea by her bedside, or quietly tend to chores that might be too difficult for her. Each gesture, though simple, carried profound meaning. They were reminders that someone cared, that she mattered, and that kindness could exist even after the darkest moments. These small acts helped Clara rebuild her faith in humanity, giving her hope that she could trust again. One afternoon, Clara asked Jack about the attack and whether he had ever experienced something similar. He hesitated, then explained that life could be unpredictable and sometimes cruel, but that he had always believed in helping people when he could. "You never know when someone will need a hand," he said quietly, "and if you have the chance to help, it's worth it." His words struck a chord with Clara. She realized that strength was not just about defending oneself or enduring hardship. It was also about extending compassion to others, about making the world a little safer through simple acts of care. As days turned into a week, Clara began to find a new rhythm in her life. She helped Jack with small chores around the house and the property, finding that physical activity, even gentle work, strengthened her body and calmed her mind. She discovered a sense of purpose in contributing, however small, and took pride in her ability to assist. The partnership that began with rescue and care evolved into mutual support, a relationship based on trust, respect, and understanding. Clara's emotional recovery was not linear. There were moments when memories of the attack would return, bringing fear and sadness. On those days, Jack was there without pushing her to move faster than she could. He offered comfort, listening and sitting with her in silence when words were insufficient. Through these experiences, Clara learned that healing was a journey and that it was okay to have difficult days. She also learned that trust could grow gradually, built through consistent kindness and support rather than rushed promises. By the end of the week, Clara felt a subtle but powerful transformation within herself. The fear that had dominated her thoughts began to loosen its grip. She no longer felt entirely powerless. Instead, she felt a cautious sense of agency and strength. Jack's presence, his unwavering care, and the small acts of kindness he offered created a safe environment in which she could rediscover her own resilience. She began to imagine a future in which she could live without constant fear, a life in which she could hope, dream, and make choices for herself. Even as she recovered, Clara did not forget the danger she had faced. She understood that the world could still be harsh, and that caution was necessary. But she also knew that the world could hold unexpected goodness, and that she had experienced a profound example of it in Jack. His actions had shown her that even in the darkest moments, people could act with compassion and courage, and that these small lights could guide her out of fear and into hope. The bond between Clara and Jack grew steadily. They shared stories, meals, and quiet moments on the porch as the sun set. They worked together on simple chores, laughed over small mishaps, and supported one another in ways that built trust and friendship. Clara began to feel a sense of belonging she had not known in years. The safety and warmth of Jack's home, combined with his steady kindness, allowed her to feel human again, to experience connection and care that went far beyond what she had expected from the world. By the time another week passed, Clara was noticeably stronger, both physically and emotionally. She could move more freely, speak more confidently, and think more clearly. Yet she remained humble in the face of the challenges she had endured, aware that her journey was still ongoing. The lessons she learned in those quiet days, about trust, patience, compassion, and resilience, would stay with her, forming the foundation for the next steps in her life. Clara realized that healing was not just about recovering from an attack. It was about reclaiming her life, rebuilding her trust in people, and learning to embrace hope once more. Jack had shown her that even small gestures of care could have a profound impact, and that sometimes survival was not only about strength, but about accepting kindness and allowing oneself to be supported. As she sat on the porch one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Clara felt a quiet sense of peace. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, that challenges would come, and that fear might return at times. But she also knew that she had survived, that she had discovered her own resilience, and that she had found someone who believed in her even when she struggled to believe in herself. For the first time in a long while, she felt ready to face the future, one step at a time, guided by the quiet light of trust, friendship, and hope. Clara had grown stronger over the past weeks, both in body and in spirit, but she knew that the real test of her courage was still ahead. Healing her wounds and rebuilding her trust had been the first steps, but confronting the shadows of her past and the fears that had haunted her for so long required an entirely different kind of strength. She had begun to understand that recovery was not just about comfort or kindness. It was about facing what scared her the most and refusing to let it control her life. One morning, Clara woke to a cool breeze flowing through the open window. The sun was rising, spilling light over the fields, painting them in shades of gold and green. She looked around Jack's home and felt gratitude for his steady presence, his patience, and the warmth he had offered her. But in the quiet of the morning, she also felt a stirring of determination. She could not remain hidden forever. She knew that to truly reclaim her life, she had to face the people or circumstances that had brought her to the roadside in the first place. Jack noticed her thoughtful expression as he brought over a cup of tea. He sat beside her quietly, waiting for her to speak. Clara took a deep breath and began to tell him about her fears. She explained how she had been attacked and abandoned, and how the memory of that night still haunted her. She admitted that she felt afraid of the world and uncertain about how to move forward. Jack listened with patience, nodding, never interrupting or dismissing her feelings. His presence gave her courage, the knowledge that she would not face these fears alone. Over the next few days, Clara and Jack planned how she might begin confronting her past safely. They discussed options for reporting the attack to the authorities, seeking justice without putting herself at risk, and protecting herself while regaining her independence. Jack offered practical advice, drawing from his life in a small town where people often had to solve problems with care and patience. He emphasized that bravery did not mean rushing into danger, but rather taking thoughtful steps to reclaim control over one's life. The first step was visiting the local authorities to file a report about the attack. Clara had hesitated for weeks, worried that no one would believe her or that the process would be overwhelming. Jack offered to accompany her, promising to support her every step of the way. The day of the visit, Clara's heart pounded as they approached the building. The world outside had seemed terrifying before, but now, with Jack by her side, she felt a small, steady strength she had never felt alone. Each step toward the door was a victory, a declaration that she would no longer be silenced or fearful. Inside, the officers listened to Clara's account with respect. They took notes carefully and asked questions gently, ensuring she felt heard and believed. Clara spoke clearly, recounting the events as best she could, her voice steady despite the fear still lingering in her chest. Jack remained nearby, offering quiet reassurance with his presence. By the time she finished, Clara felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. She had faced part of her fear, speaking the truth to the authorities, and survived the experience without being overwhelmed. After leaving the authorities, Jack suggested a walk through the nearby fields to clear her mind. Clara agreed, grateful for the opportunity to breathe fresh air and absorb the beauty of the countryside. As they walked, she felt the sunlight on her face and the soft grass beneath her feet, and she realized that moments of peace and courage could coexist. Facing the past did not erase the fear or the memories, but it gave her a sense of agency, a realization that she could take steps to protect herself and shape her future. Clara also began to take small steps to reclaim her independence. Jack encouraged her to engage in daily routines, to practice skills that would help her feel more capable. She cooked simple meals, helped tend the small garden, and learned how to care for the animals that Jack raised. Each task, while modest, became a form of empowerment. Clara discovered that strength was built not only through facing fear, but through mastering ordinary tasks, regaining confidence in her abilities, and proving to herself that she could manage her life. Despite her progress, Clara occasionally struggled with memories of the attack. Certain sounds, sudden movements, or even shadows could trigger panic, causing her body to tense and her heart to race. On those days, Jack would sit quietly with her, allowing her to express her fears without judgment. Sometimes they sat in silence, sharing the moment without words. Other times, Jack offered gentle reminders that she had survived, that she was safe now, and that she was capable of overcoming her fear. These moments were crucial for Clara, teaching her that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. One afternoon, Clara decided to take a longer walk on her own, venturing to the edge of Jack's property. She carried a small stick for protection and moved carefully, aware of the shadows and sounds around her. At first, her steps were tentative, her eyes darting nervously at every movement. But as she continued, she began to notice the beauty around her. The delicate flowers growing near the fence, the chirping birds in the trees, and the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. Each observation grounded her in the present moment, helping her realize that life was still full of beauty, even after pain. Returning home, Clara shared her experience with Jack. She described the fear she had felt, the tension in her muscles, and the relief of completing the walk safely. Jack listened carefully, smiling gently. "Every step you take forward is a victory," he said. "Even when it feels small, it matters." "You are stronger than you think." Clara felt a warmth spread through her chest. His words were not empty encouragement. They were a reflection of the truth she had been discovering, that she was capable of courage, that she could confront her fears, and that she could reclaim her life. As the weeks progressed, Clara began exploring other ways to regain control. She researched safe places to stay, ways to protect herself, and methods for building a future where she could feel secure. Jack supported her in each endeavor, helping her plan and encouraging her to take measured, confident steps. Together, they practiced simple safety routines, talked through potential scenarios, and strengthened Clara's ability to respond calmly under pressure. With each day, Clara's confidence grew, and her fear gradually lost some of its grip. Clara also started thinking about her long-term goals. She realized that confronting her past did not mean she had to remain trapped in it. She could pursue her dreams, find work that mattered, and build relationships based on trust and respect. Jack encouraged her to set goals for herself, reminding her that the future was hers to shape. Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose, an understanding that while the past had been painful, it did not have to define the rest of her life. One evening, as they sat together on the porch, Clara reflected on her journey so far. She had faced unimaginable fear, been abandoned, and left vulnerable on the roadside. Yet she had also experienced profound kindness, compassion, and support. Jack's presence had given her the strength to confront her fears, to speak her truth, and to take steps toward reclaiming her independence. The transformation within her was subtle but powerful. She felt more grounded, more capable, and more hopeful than she had in years. The final challenge of this stage came when Clara decided to visit a nearby town to run errands she had postponed for fear of encountering danger. Jack accompanied her, staying close but allowing her to lead. Each step she took into the town was a declaration of courage, a choice to engage with the world despite her past trauma. People passed by, some offering friendly greetings, others indifferent, but Clara noticed that she no longer reacted with panic to every glance or sound. She was learning to move through the world with awareness and confidence, rather than fear. By the time they returned home, Clara felt a sense of accomplishment. She had faced a real-world challenge, navigated it safely, and proven to herself that she could engage with life on her own terms. Jack smiled, proud of her progress, but Clara realized that the true source of her strength had come from within. The kindness and support he had offered were invaluable, but her courage, determination, and resilience were hers alone. That night, as she lay in bed, Clara allowed herself to dream, not just about survival, but about living fully. She imagined a life where she could feel safe, work toward her goals, and build relationships based on trust and care. She knew that the road ahead would still have obstacles, but she no longer felt powerless in the face of them. With each step she took, guided by the lessons she had learned, Clara embraced the possibility of a brighter future. Clara woke up to the soft warmth of sunlight streaming through the window. She stretched carefully, noticing how much stronger she had become over the past weeks. Her body no longer ached as it once had, and her spirit felt lighter, more resilient. The journey from that dark night on the roadside to this moment had been long and challenging, but she realized that she had grown stronger than she ever imagined. She was no longer defined by the fear and pain of the past. Instead, she carried the courage and hope that she had discovered within herself. Jack entered the room with a gentle smile, carrying a tray with breakfast. He had always been attentive, thoughtful, and steady, but Clara now recognized that her own strength had brought her to this point. Jack had helped her, guided her, and supported her, but the courage, determination, and resilience she had shown were entirely her own. She felt gratitude not only for his presence, but also for the lessons she had learned along the way. That kindness could restore trust, that courage could be nurtured step by step, and that even after trauma, hope could grow again. That morning, Clara decided it was time to take the next steps toward reclaiming her life. She wanted to leave the safety of Jack's home, not because she no longer valued it, but because she understood that her recovery required engaging with the world, building a future, and asserting her independence. Jack encouraged her to pursue her goals, helping her plan practical steps and offering advice when she needed it. But he also reminded her that she had the strength to make decisions for herself. "You know what you can handle," he said softly. "I'm just here to remind you that you can." Clara's first task was to reconnect with the people who had been part of her life before the attack. She reached out to her younger brother, calling him for the first time in weeks. Her voice trembled as she spoke, but it was a tremble of courage, not fear. She explained what had happened, shared the details of her recovery, and reassured him that she was safe. Her brother, initially shocked and worried, soon expressed relief and joy, his voice filled with emotion. Clara felt a profound sense of connection, a reminder that even after darkness, relationships could heal and grow stronger. Next, Clara focused on rebuilding her independence. She found a small room to rent in a nearby town and began organizing her belongings. Each task, from packing her few possessions to arranging her new space, was an exercise in self-reliance and confidence. She discovered that her ability to plan, make decisions, and take action was stronger than she had believed. The simple act of organizing her life became a symbol of her recovery, a declaration that she could move forward on her own terms. Clara also sought work, using the skills she had developed over the years. She applied to positions that aligned with her abilities and passions, determined to establish financial stability and a sense of purpose. Jack helped her prepare for interviews and offered encouragement, but it was Clara's own determination, patience, and persistence that secured her a position. Each small success, from submitting applications to attending interviews, became a building block in her new life. She felt pride and confidence grow within her, a stark contrast to the helplessness she had once felt on that roadside. In addition to practical steps, Clara devoted time to her emotional well-being. She spent quiet mornings journaling, reflecting on her journey, and acknowledging the fears she had faced and overcome. She practiced mindfulness, learning to focus on the present moment rather than dwelling on the past. Clara also nurtured her bond with Jack, sharing meals, stories, and quiet conversations that reminded her of the strength of human connection. Through these practices, she continued to cultivate resilience, hope, and a sense of inner peace. As weeks turned into months, Clara noticed remarkable changes in herself. The fear that had once dominated her thoughts had diminished significantly. She could walk through crowded streets without panic, engage with strangers without suspicion, and navigate challenges with thoughtful calm. The memories of her attack remained, but they no longer controlled her life. Instead, they had become part of her story, a story of survival, courage, and growth. Clara recognized that her experiences had shaped her into someone stronger, more compassionate, and more capable than she had ever imagined. Clara also realized the depth of her friendship with Jack. Their bond, formed through acts of kindness, trust, and mutual support, had become a cornerstone of her recovery. Jack had shown her that people could act with integrity, that support could be offered without expectation, and that courage could be nurtured through consistent, gentle guidance. Clara valued their friendship deeply, understanding that it had given her both strength and inspiration. She knew that even as she built her own life, this connection would remain a source of comfort and encouragement. One evening, Clara reflected on how far she had come. Sitting on the porch of her new home, she watched the sunset, its warm colors spilling across the horizon. She thought about the dark night when she had been left alone on the roadside, the pain and fear she had felt, and the overwhelming uncertainty of survival. And then she thought about Jack, the steady presence that had guided her and the courage she had found within herself. She realized that her life had changed, not because the danger had disappeared, but because she had discovered her ability to face challenges and reclaim her life. Clara began to dream about the future, imagining a life filled with possibilities rather than fear. She considered furthering her education, pursuing a career she was passionate about, and building relationships based on trust and mutual respect. She understood that challenges would still arise, but she no longer felt powerless. Instead, she felt equipped with the skills, mindset, and resilience to navigate whatever came her way. Each day became an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to embrace life fully. Her recovery also inspired Clara to give back to others. She began volunteering at a local center that assisted people in crisis, sharing her story in a safe and supportive environment. She encouraged those who were struggling to seek help, to trust in the kindness of others, and to find courage within themselves. Clara found that offering support not only helped others, but reinforced her own sense of purpose and resilience. She understood that even small actions could have profound effects, much like the simple kindness Jack had shown her months before. Clara's journey was not linear. There were days of doubt, moments of fear, and challenges that tested her resolve. Yet, each obstacle became an opportunity to practice the skills she had learned, to strengthen her courage, and to reaffirm her commitment to living fully. She approached life with a new mindset, one that embraced hope, sought connection, and valued both personal strength and the support of others. Clara understood that life would never be perfect, but it could be meaningful, fulfilling, and guided by the lessons she had learned through her journey. Eventually, Clara felt ready to return to Jack's home for a visit, not out of necessity, but to share her progress and gratitude. She walked up the familiar path, her heart filled with warmth and appreciation. Jack greeted her with a smile, and they spent the afternoon talking, laughing, and reflecting on the journey they had shared. Clara realized that her life had shifted profoundly. She had moved from fear to strength, from uncertainty to hope, and from isolation to connection. By the end of that day, Clara understood that her story was one of survival, resilience, and the transformative power of human kindness. She had faced unimaginable fear, endured pain, and confronted the shadows of her past. Yet through courage, determination, and the support of a compassionate friend, she had reclaimed her life. Clara now saw the future not as a threat, but as a landscape of possibilities, each step guided by her own strength and the knowledge that even in darkness light could be found. In the final moments of her visit, Clara thanked Jack sincerely. "You saved me," she said softly, "not just from that night, but from the fear that had held me back for so long. You helped me find my courage." Jack nodded humbly. "No, Clara," he replied. "You saved yourself. I just reminded you that you could." His words resonated deeply with her. She understood that her journey was a testament to her own resilience, the strength of the human spirit, and the quiet power of kindness. As Clara left Jack's home and returned to her own life, she carried with her not only the lessons of survival and resilience, but also the warmth of a friendship that had helped shape her journey. She faced the future with confidence, courage, and hope, knowing that while challenges would arise, she had the strength to overcome them. The night on the roadside had marked the darkest moment of her life, but it had also set the stage for a story of courage, healing, and the enduring power of human connection. Clara's life was no longer defined by fear or trauma. Instead, it was defined by her determination, her growth, and the connections she had forged. She had learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to move forward despite it. She had learned that kindness could restore trust, and that even in the darkest moments, hope could emerge. And she had learned that her own strength, combined with the support of others, could transform her life in ways she had never imagined. As the sun set on Clara's story, she felt a deep sense of peace. She had survived, healed, and grown stronger than she had ever thought possible. And while the future remained uncertain, she knew one thing for certain. She was ready to face it, to embrace life fully, and to continue her journey with courage, hope, and the knowledge that she was never truly alone.